For big terrorism, you need big money, and these little groups just don't have it. Robbing banks is popular to get large sums of money fast, but that is hard work and rather risky. Garage and bake sales are safer, but the returns just are not as good. Enter the states. Most governments have some spare change sitting around, and a few are willing to sponsor large terrorist groups with proven effectiveness. Hezbollah is one of these. Mostly operating out of Lebanon, but primarily supported by Iran and occasionally Syria and Sudan, they were responsible for taking American hostages during the long drawn-out Lebanese Civil War, as well as several aircraft hijackings. Americans were the primary targets of Hezbollah during this period. My job in the CIA at this time was in hostage rescue, and I was also on a very high-level interagency task force with the same goal. Way cool job, by the way. Libya is another one of these players in the state sponsoring of terrorism. You may remember Pan Am Flight 107, which was blown up over Lockerbie, Scotland. This was done by 2 Libyan terrorists and funded by the Libyan government of Muammar al-Gaddafi. I had 2 friends on that flight who lost their lives, and others who were shot by terrorists in other countries. One was a woman in her 20s with 2 small children. States sponsor terrorism for the same reason as people become terrorists. They feel powerless in a world of power held by only a few countries, which they see as wanting to control them, militarily, economically, or both. They have little or nothing in the way of money and power and resent those who do. Check last week's lesson topic video for a refresher if you need it. This is the same thing on a bigger scale. Some of them hearken back to their glorious days of yesteryear in a current world of what have you done for me lately? The Arab world is particularly enraptured with this concept, and they want to be glorious again. This only works if you use positive and progressive means. Forward into the past just doesn't do it for me. I added a note in your discussion question about the difference between a state and a nation. These are used incorrectly every day, and I used to do it too before I knew better. State and nation are not interchangeable. A state is a country, but a nation is not necessarily a state. States have defined political boundaries. Nations are groups of people with the same language, religion, culture, and traditions. The Kurds are a nation, Iraq is a state, although a nation of Kurds live in Iraq. Many nations can live in one state, and usually they fight about who is superior and who should be running the state. The Lebanese Civil War is a good example of this. Geographers were one of the major causes of wars and conflicts. They went to the peace conferences after the big wars, took away the losers' colonies, sometimes parts of their countries, and divided them up among the winners, without bothering to learn about the lands they were dividing and the nations inhabiting them. They just cut them up into nice-looking states and named them something else. Check out a map of West Africa. Notice all the small, skinny countries which all have ports. This was designed by the geographers at the peace conference to please those who were getting the new colonies. Everyone wanted a port, so they creatively redrew the new states so each one had a little bit of coastline. Ever wonder how many cross tribal lines and cause wars? Think about Rwanda and Burundi in Central Africa. The Hutus and Tutsis control these places, but the geographers of the day divided the countries so that both nations lived in both Rwanda and Burundi. You know what has happened several times there. If not, watch the movie Hotel Rwanda. The political boundaries crossed tribal lines, and these tribes never got along in the first place. One tribe ended up ruling Rwanda and the other Burundi, so there was constant conflict in both countries and between the countries. One spark or triggering event and major massacres erupted. The Hutus are very tall and the Tutsis are very short, so it's not like one can hide by blending in. I included a website in the readings that will list and explain the countries the U.S. considers state sponsors of terrorism. You should visit it before answering your discussion question. Have a great week. It's almost over.